Hey guys. So a bit of a different beginning to the episode this time. Gonna go ahead and say that we kind of fucked up.
We fucked it.
We fucked up the audio a bit, and it sounds kind of like shit.
So just be prepared for that. For most of the episode, there is like some weirdness. You might want to turn your headphones down.
Yeah, a bit blown out the audio a little bit. So just pardon our dust. And we thought the conversation was good enough that we didn't want to like just totally redo it.
Yeah. While we're at it, while we have you, just wanted to shout out our good friends Laura and Katrina started their own podcast. It's called Do It for the Bit. Where is it streaming? Everywhere?
Spotify? At least. I know that much. I don't know about other places, but if you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, you can go ahead and find it on there as well. Do It for the Bit. Go ahead and follow them on Instagram. I forgot their offhand, but it's probably something to do with
Do It for the Bit podcast or something.
Something like that. It's a great show.
It's pretty good. They also just had an episode recently come out that was all about Texas culture, and I feel like that goes well with what we're talking about in this episode.
Yes. And yeah, I guess so with that, we'll go ahead and leave y'all to the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Enjoy if you can. Awesome.
Hey, team.
Hey, squad.
We need to do a hot take. We need to do a hot take.
Okay, wait. I was trying to think of one before this. Yeah. Okay, so welcome back to the show. Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. Off to a bad start. All right. Welcome back to the Mankheads podcast.
Welcome back.
Hosted by Emma and
Diego.
This guy. We're welcoming our guest Parker Howard this week. Good friend, old pal.
Friend of the show.
I live with y'all.
I'm pretty sure this is the first time we're meeting. I don't think I know you.
I think we met at on a yacht one time.
He was a different guy. Not on many yachts these days.
Different Parker Howard.
Different
okay.
Parker Howard.
Hot takes. We do hot takes.
Hot takes. Do you have a hot take, Parker?
I do actually.
Uh-oh.
Cats should be house trained.
I thought you were going to say that you don't like cats at all. I'll go with the converse. I don't like dogs. I'm going to say it. I think dogs are loud and dumb.
Here's a hot take. I really don't like being licked by dogs. I think it's gross. It's slimy. It's just like, I don't want that.
And then they jump on you and stuff, and their paws can be all dirty and shit. I'm like, no. And then they're always like, oh, he's so cute, right? I'm like, no, he's not. He's getting all over me, right?
He's kind of stinky.
And also I working as a delivery driver, I would ring the doorbell, and it would just be the loudest goddamn dog on the planet. It's like, oh no. Someone's delivering my owner's Chinese food. Why would I lose my goddamn mind about it?
I have the same idea, and I think I have the same job, and my idea for that is that they should create a doorbell for dogs, or that dogs can't hear. So it's instead of at a very high frequency that only dogs can hear, it's at an incredibly low frequency. So it's like, boom, boom, boom.
It's like a foghorn.
Yeah. So dogs don't hear it, and yeah, I think that'd be great because I agree with you on that with dogs. But I think cats are entitled and smug. So,
I mean,
sometimes, right? Yeah, but sometimes they sit on you, and that's kind of cool.
It's kind of cute when they purr. It's just This is the best.
This is awesome.
When I was canvassing, I had a similar experience with just I would just knock on people's doors up and down the neighborhood, just upsetting every single dog in the neighborhood. So that was kind of a line that I had just to because it was so awkward. People would come to the door and their dog would be losing its fucking mind. So I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. All I do all day long is just upset everybody's dog, whatever. I would just be like, my bad.
You should have said, they're voting for Abbott.
Yeah. Your dog seems kind of upset.
Yeah.
We keep it real here on the Mankheads podcast. Talking about the issues that the voters care about.
Hard hitting. Yeah.
All
right. So this week we're discussing Richard Linklater.
Hey Richard, want a Linklater?
Linklater? Linklater.
I hardly know her.
Yeah.
Linklatian.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the films of Richard Linklater. How he kind of plays into our zeitgeist, I guess, as college students or former college students, some of us
native Texans
in Austin, especially now. That kind of stuff. So where do we want to start?
Well, I think we should probably introduce Richard Linklater in general to listeners who may not be familiar. I feel like probably with our y'all's audience. And
I don't know how many of those there are.
I feel like
Many people are going to be unfamiliar, but
yeah.
Yeah, of course we should. I don't know when he was born.
I don't know.
50s?
Something like that. 60s, maybe. Generation X.
I believe he was born in the early 60s.
Early
Okay.
60s.
Yeah, and he lived in Huntsville, Texas.
Yeah.
At least he went to school there for a
Go
little bit.
Tigers. Same Houston State. Is it Tigers? Bearcats?
Bearcats.
I don't know.
It's okay.
It's fine.
Yeah, his big part of his growing up was baseball.
Yeah.
It's a very, very near and dear thing to him.
He's literally me.
And something pretty interesting is that he I believe he dropped out of college, and
Yeah, he did 2 years.
He did 2 years, and then he went to go work on an oil rig.
Offshore oil rig.
Yeah, offshore oil rig for a few months. Got a lot of money, and that helped fund his first true feature, Slacker. And with that, he had a pretty rigorous, I think, schedule of watching movies. He pretty religiously watched movies. A lot of art house classics. That's where more of his interests lie. So yeah, he sounds kind of obnoxious though.
I mean, so do like a lot of his characters though, and we'll get into that for sure.
Right.
I was just going to say, I feel like it's true of pretty much every filmmaker that, like, they make films about themselves.
Yeah.
I definitely think you could say that's true of, like, Woody Allen. So,
Yeah.
You know, it's like every single Woody Allen, like, main character is Woody Allen, right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty true of Richard Linklater, too. Being a Texas boy and a baseball boy, you see that come up over and over again in his films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like a big hallmark of his like style and his ethos is like kind of just like the day-to-day life, that kind of like not very much of a structure and too many in some of his films, especially in like Slacker, which we're going to talk about extensively, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And also just like discussions that people have about whatever the hell that kind of like reveal a bit about like where like Richard Linklater might be like where the places that he might be in his like own like life at that point, you know.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of like there's a lot to do with you know, discussions about like philosophy or like, you know, waxing poetic about like dreams that you have or like, you know, like romantic life and that kind of thing. And I feel like especially in like certain circles you see that a lot, like kind of like if not mirrored, then like at least emulated and replicated because of like his, I guess, like his like putting like that stuff out there into like the canon of like Texas and Austin in general, you know. So you see that a lot in like certain parts of Austin, like at like Epoch Coffee, you know, like those kind of areas up in North Loop.
Yeah, I think now there are very few remnants of those of that kind of old Austin.
But I mean, that same thing has been said over and over again for
which
decades.
is another thing that I'm gonna want to talk about soon. But yeah,
he is quite concerned with the passage of time. Right?
Very much so.
I think that's like the biggest overarching theme in all of his films.
Yeah,
it seems.
and I was just talking to you about it. Like a big thing about it is like even not just in the narrative of the films, but like the creation of the films is temporality. About like how time passes in between projects or like over the course of a project, you know, of a singular project.
And more than a project in life.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
He really captures something that I think so many have tried to capture and failed.
Yeah. I think like a lot of his movies, like even like some of the less or I guess how do I say it? Some of the more like accessible films of his, even they're like still like really cutting edge. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I think actually I'll save that. I'm not gonna go too much into it yet.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with his career, right? He didn't go to film school. I don't even know what he was studying. He went to college in Houston on a baseball scholarship.
Yeah, I think he was studying writing or philosophy, I want to say.
That makes sense.
Checks out.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would need to double check to confirm that.
Dropped out after 2 years. What were you
I was
going
gonna
to say?
say, Jamie, look that up. Sorry.
There's no Jamie this time. He's sitting right
He's
here.
right there. Nice, you made it in. Let's go.
Let's go.
Thanks.
That's class.
That's awesome.
Got called up, bud.
So the very first thing he made wasn't actually Slacker, right? It's this experimental kind of film called it's impossible to learn to plow by reading a book. That wording might not be precise, but yeah.
Consult our handy dandy.
Whip it out.
Our handy dandy criterion.
It's impossible to learn to plow by reading books.
By reading books. Oh, I was so close. I watched that for the first time 2 weeks ago. I really liked it. I don't think it's super accessible because it's just like you could say it's a precursor to Slacker. It's kind of just him. He's like the sole character in the movie, and
played by Linklater.
Okay. And there's not a ton of dialogue. There is like conversations and stuff, but it was really just like him recording himself, having conversations with people, going from place to place, traveling around Texas. And he did this film like entirely on his own, like filmed it, starred in it, edited it, whatever, on a budget of like, it was something like $3,000 Super 8 over 2 years. Just did it by himself. And it does exactly what the title of the film is saying. He was kind of like, well, I don't know how to make a film, so I'm just going to make a film so that I know how to make a film. And then he took a lot of the ideas that he got there and transferred them to Slacker, which is a little more, it's still like kind of rough around the edges, which is what is so great about it. But it's a lot more slick than the Plow.
What's so would that be more of a documentary type than like a narrative, or was it scripted, you know? Or because I don't know anything about this film.
I don't think it's scripted, but there's kind of a narrative that he found. Like there's a part where the character just like has a rifle and he like points it out of his bathroom window and just shoots out into the air, and he's kind of like, I was watching it with the director's commentary, and he talked about like, yeah, he's like, oh, you know, maybe he like shot somebody, you don't know. Like there's kind of like some kind of narrative. He's this kind of odd alienated figure, which is also, I think, something that like he touches on a lot of the time.
I think with that first with Plow, I think you could kind of call it almost like a structuralist film. And Richard Linklater is a big fan of this director named James Benning, who's a bit more of a experimental filmmaker. He's a professor as well, I believe at UC Berkeley or one of the UC schools, but he's a pretty prolific American filmmaker, very drawn out, long takes that really seems like nothing very much happened, but his big thing is temporality that he deals with. So I think it's interesting because I feel like Linklater comes a lot more for him from kind of a background that's a bit more experimental in nature. That, of course, I mean, just only got refined and more accessible over time. But I think you can even see that in Slacker, because I think those first like 2 or 3 times you watch Slacker are a little painful.
Oh yeah,
and then it suddenly hits, and it's the best thing. Which is something I think we could talk about as well. Rewatchability.
Yeah. I think I really enjoyed Slacker the first time I watched it. Although, like, I mean, I watched it maybe towards the beginning of college or end of high school. I can't really remember. And then I did watch it. I've watched it like 3 or 4 times since then, and it's gotten more enjoyable with each watch.
Yeah, I think going in with certain expectations for it helps as well. I think if you're expecting something very like, I think vibrant and engrossing and like, I don't know, like when you hear the description, it's like a like first-hand look at early 90s Austin, you know, the Keep Austin Weird movement, the highlight of it all. You're like, oh, this is going to be crazy. And it's like, it's literally just people in a town.
Yeah, you cannot expect a strict narrative.
It's pretty bleak too, honestly. Like, it's like just like, I don't know, people that are all just like, so like jaded by everything, cynical, and just like cynical, everything.
Just a bunch of slackers.
Yeah. What are we, some sort of slackers?
Yeah.
That's what they said in the movie.
Multiple times.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I was, I found this Texas Monthly article that I sent to Emma. I should have sent it to you because it was really interesting. I'll send it to you after this. And it was just like someone like talking about the 30th anniversary screening of Slacker at the Paramount a few years back. Yeah. And that is Slacker is like, it wasn't really considered part of like Texas film canon, like something like Last Picture Show or something like that, you know, because of a lot of Austin's perceived like otherness.
It's
in
very,
Texas. It's kind of like an island in Texas.
It's like incredibly diametrically opposed to like the Western or something.
Yeah. But to that point, though, the writer of the article, who I'm drawing a blank on, they said that they made the argument that the movie and the characters in the film in particular are inherently Texan because of like the inherent like mistrust, I guess, of like others that have, or like of like some sort of like status quo in that movie, you know, like everything that everyone says is that in that movie, everything that everyone does in their life of like not working is a reaction against, you know, systems in place.
Right.
And I think of the guy who was coming back from his stepfather's funeral, who was like walking around and like he runs into that like student documentary crew, and is like, do you have a job? And he's like, fuck no. Like, are you ever gonna get a job? Fuck no. All right, because why do I slave away while the fat cat's at the top, or whatever he says? They like get all the money while I'm like still slaving away. I'm living a shit life, but at least I'm not working to like, you know, I'm not working to have a shit life. You know? And I was like, damn, that's like
that's inspiring.
That's inspiring. That guy's my hero.
It's like, end of interview.
Yeah.
How's your relationship with your father? End of interview. Then he reappears in Waking Life in red form.
Devil.
He's evolved.
They got him. They got my man. They put him back in jail.
Yeah.
Political prisoner.
I think one of the funniest little moments in that is like right after, because he goes into like a supermarket and sees like a friend of his who's a security guard, and the security guard sees somebody shoplifting. He sees a woman shoplifting. They have an argument, and then a younger woman and her father walk by, and
the anarchist professor.
Yeah, the anarchist professor. The younger woman was like, "Oh, I know that girl. She was in my ethics class."
Yeah, no, that was really funny.
That was so funny.
Like that movie's funny in a lot of like subtle ways, but that was like one of like the main like kind of like punchline type of jokes in that movie.
Yeah, I think something big too is that you know, no music. There's nothing really crazy going on with your editing or your post-production basically until the last 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And even then that's just a different format. You know, they switch between like the Pixel Vision camera a little bit too, which is cool. But yeah, it's a pretty cut and dry, like they're just filming.
Yeah,
there's nothing really crazy, nothing too.
I also read that for the filming of that movie, like pretty much like no permits or anything required. They're required like, and this harkens back to the idea of like, oh, Austin used to be so much cooler and laid back, you know. That pretty much the only permit that was needed for the movie was to like the permit to like dump the typewriters off of like the bridge on like because it was someone's property right there or something like that. And that they also got stopped by the police when they were filming the guy
yelling on the
megaphone
speaker
thing, the like Alex Jones type character, I guess. Going into so the police got stopped and he's like, what's going on here? And they said, we're making a movie. He said, all right, that's cool, carry on, and just like fucked off. Awesome. What the fuck? I love cops.
That would not happen today.
Got a soundbite.
So strike that. Do not post that on the TikTok.
I think you should.
I think we will.
Yeah. Oh, before we like move on, like obviously though, I did want to bring up the thing that you said about it's impossible to learn to plow, about the guy shooting out of a window and then just like not like really focusing on that. I remember like there's a sequence in Slacker that's similar to that. That's the guy, the one like normal guy in the movie that goes into that coffee shop and just like gets like bombarded by all these like weirdos.
Yeah.
And then he's
sanest guy in Austin.
Yeah, sanest guy in Austin. Then just like decides to like cut his losses and fuck off.
Yeah.
As he like walks out of the restaurant across the street, you hear a car like skirt on its brakes. And it's like, did you just get hit by a car?
Yeah.
Is he dead? And they're just like, who cares? There's another guy over here. Let's follow him.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was like a funny thing that like there's like you can already see those senses of like seeding ideas into like other stuff later in his career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those things happen and time doesn't stop.
Yeah.
What?
Fuck me, dude. I keep hitting that.
Okay, so
do we want to move on
let's
to
move on.
The next like touchstone of his career, I think.
Yeah, sure.
Which would be Dazed and Confused.
Dazed and Confused.
Right.
Great movie.
Great movie. I watched a Dazed. Like I went on like a little bit of like a Linklater like binge, like, because I never actually saw Days when I was like growing up. It was never something that my parents showed me, I guess. I don't know.
No, I saw it for the first time in college.
Yeah, but I was instantly just like in love with it. It's just such a fun.
One of those
fun
movies where you're like, why didn't I see it sooner?
No, yeah, like I'm like I was like punching the air. I was like, fuck, dude. I was like, I didn't have this for so long. You know,
It definitely seems like very much like a seminal like high school teen classic.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's much more. I think it goes above anything like a John Hughes movie sets out to achieve.
Of course it
you know?
does.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's so much uniqueness as well that you see in like Slacker. But I just think multiple different storylines, but here they converge, which is very nice. And yeah, an ensemble cast, and I think everybody's pretty well cast, and
Oh yeah.
Agreed.
everybody very much is like, there's no one you're kind of rooting against really either. You know, I feel
No,
like
I think there's that
Maybe the
one.
Ben
there's Ben
Affleck
Affleck, but I mean, I
Affleck,
think
yeah.
nobody. It's like interesting too, because like, and I heard Linklater talk about this as well in some interview, but like, you know, I think a lot of writers projected a lot of their own experiences onto in high school movies, for example, onto jock and athlete characters based on their own experiences, but like. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but my experience in high school was like, they're just dudes and people who were like cool, and like everybody was pretty cool with them, and like.
I was gonna say I don't think that Richard Linklater would be judging those people. He was one.
He was going to college for baseball. Like,
Yeah.
You know, I think it'll always be a pretty soft spot, but I thought it's a pretty like non-objective look or non-subjective look. At it, because I don't know. I think that's pretty true when you look outside of it, because there is. I mean, you could probably argue that. Mitch Kramer or, you know, Pink is the main character. I think those two are probably the two cornerstones, but
Both just different versions of Linklater.
yeah, very much so. I mean, I'm pretty sure when it's set in 1976, I think Mitch Kramer's 14, and that's how old Linklater was in 76.
Right.
So I think it's
probably
pretty direct self-insert there.
So on the contrary, I have been watching. I think this is like the first Linklater film I ever saw. I don't think there is another one I would have seen before this, and that's just because it's one of my mom's favorite movies. And if it's set in 1976, that is literally the year that my mom graduated from high school. I think she graduated in like 75 or 76.
And
so
what, they're like entering their senior year, right?
Yeah.
The characters, yeah.
Yeah.
Most of them, I
my
guess.
dad was 16, so he would have been a junior or senior.
Yeah.
So watching this movie growing up, what the idea that I had of it was like, oh, this was my mom's like life. Like this was her childhood. That's cool. And I think it really was. Like, I think that's one of the things that he does so well, and he did that in Slacker, of course, too, is just capturing a time and a place and a feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, it says a lot more. It says, I mean, not a lot more, but it says a lot about like being able to do this, because it's like going back in time to be able to do this 20 years in the past. Whereas Slacker, it's like, of course, you know, he puts like so much of like his experiences onto the screen. It captures like, it captures an ideal that was really hard to like, you know, focus in on. Does that really well, but it was also a contemporary film, you know, whereas this one's I guess period piece kind of. I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Both are really nostalgic, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
Even
like
the one that's happening at the time.
Yeah, no, I feel like there's always a oh, you just missed it idea, which is like the phrase that is used in that article.
Yeah.
For Austin, everyone's always thinking like, oh man, you missed you missed the really good days, you know.
It does feel like that was the last like good ticket, you know, like the people that were our age at that time.
Yeah.
I really think like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Pre 9/11, yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, like,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot going on like in like before like our day and age that you could always look back fondly on. But I mean, like to that point though, I think like I think it just depends on kind of like the person that you are, you know. Like I really like try to like emulate that lifestyle, like you know, I'm just not just like emulate it, but like I just like I really idealize that, you know, that like DIY like lifestyle of everyone's like, you know, like just like, you know, making it, just like not giving a shit, you know, doing what they can to have fun, you know, and that's something that I've always really like been in love with. Some people, I don't know, necessarily don't need that, and I guess that's like, you know, yeah.
It's clearly something that he values, and it shows up in his films. Just like, the little things.
And that's why I think that's why like a lot of us are like particularly in love with like his movies, is because we also like we subscribe to similar ideals.
I think even more something interesting like about like Slacker is that it very much reads as like a love letter to Austin, but I don't think there's anything in the movie that's inherently like romantic or explicitly romantic or incredibly emotional. Mm-hmm. It's pretty like cut and dry. Mm-hmm. And you know, you even mentioned like documentary and kind of like earlier, and it's like, yeah, I don't think there's really any frills to it.
Just the nooks and the crannies and the quirks.
Yeah, it's almost like ethnographic, his movies.
Oh yeah,
especially Slacker, you know, and I guess what sounds like Plow as well. Mm-hmm. Very much like that. But even Dazed has like, you know, has that, because it's a very niche thing to write a movie about like the last day of senior year in a Texas town, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like but there's still like a universality in it, and it's like a universally beloved film.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Also, the needle drops in that movie is pretty great. I think that's interesting too, because Slacker, you know, very notably absence of any soundtrack, but you know, Dazed, he gets his chance with a studio and like
it's a little more commercial.
It's a little more commercial, but you can also kind of see what he can do with that money, and it's like I think he very much proves that Slacker's not a fluke. Yeah. Any natural talent he showed there.
And it's still something different than anything else you were seeing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think he definitely took a lot of cues from people like Scorsese and Spielberg, who, you know, have had the fortune of using music. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he was doing this before Boogie Nights, with, you know, 4 years before. So, which is pretty incredible, because I think that's kind of a gold standard for
that kind of like that kind of hangout movie.
I'd say, or not hangout movie, but I think literally just the use of music in a movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, which I think is another thing too, is Linklater was, other than maybe Steven Soderbergh, he was pretty influential in all the new American independent scene.
Definitely.
You know, he was right before. This is right around the time of Reservoir Dogs. I think it was right after Slacker. And then Dazed is right before Pulp Fiction. And then PTA, you know, wouldn't make it big for another few years. But, and then there's also many other great ones that, you know, slip in the cracks just because they're not those big names. But, I do think, I actually think probably Linklater's, like, status of being very prolific may actually shoot him in the foot, because I think there's a bit more fat to go through with his filmography, whereas like somebody like PTA or Tarantino, every movie is like a big deal, you know, whereas like, you know, we're talking about this, like I haven't even seen this, I haven't seen that.
We have the list of like, it's a peek behind the curtain, we have a list of like all his like
we got his filmography pulled up.
And there's like, especially towards the back end of it, there's just a lot of stuff that like I don't think many of us have seen or like really even bothered to see. I didn't bother to see. What was it? Where'd You Go, Bernadette? That was a more recent one.
I think, I mean, I think that like with someone like him, right? Him making that first one, people don't watch that one, right? Like It's Impossible to Learn to Plow. I mean, it's just not available really anywhere. But Criterion, it is. I watch it on the Criterion channel. But
it's on the disc.
I think he's the kind of filmmaker that is always just going to do whatever he feels, whether it's going to be popular or liked or well received or not, right? So I think he's just the kind of filmmaker that has to make those things so that he can eventually make something like Before Sunrise.
Yeah.
School of Rock.
Should we move on
Cultural Reset, School of Rock.
Should we move on to Before Sunrise now?
All right. So now we're going to move on to talking about Before Sunrise. This film came out 2 years after Dazed and Confused in 1995.
Yeah, I think we're probably gonna talk about the whole trilogy. It's kind of hard to talk about one of the others.
Yeah. It truly is. I think that my favorite thing about these films and what it showcases about his filmmaking is just how amazing his dialogue is.
Oh yeah,
it's so natural.
I think particularly in the second one. I think the second one is probably my favorite of the two. I'm just gonna like come out and say that just because like.
A lot of people say that.
I think the second's the best.
I think the second one. I think
it's concise time for me to do. Well.
Concise, yeah. It's the shortest of the ones. Welcome. It's like and I guess like with this one we can start talking about like is like, oh yeah, got the trilogy down there. Can't really see it, but I think that like we can start talking about his like kind of like use of time.
Yes.
In these movies.
Yeah, of course.
Either you know, trilogy, 3 movies. Each one is set 9 years apart from the other, so it's like. and it's shot in real time, and you can kind of see where he starts getting the idea of like the use of real time, what he would use later in his career with before Sunrise and after Before Sunset.
Yeah,
when he starts filming Boyhood.
Reinvented the rom-com.
Is it a rom-com? I don't know if it's a rom-com.
I consider it like a rom-com. It's so like, it's chill. Like it's not strictly a rom-com. I would never say that.
It's not like, but you're right. It's not melodrama. It's not like, it's not like your whole like, I don't know, like chick flick necessarily.
Maybe it's a romantic dramedy.
Romantic dramedy, yeah. I don't know.
That's a pretty crazy string of like 3 first movies.
Yeah, it's insane.
Like that's like
Slacker, Dazed, Before.
That's an insane run.
That's pretty insane.
If I get that, I'm like, all right, I'm calling it, man.
No.
I'm out.
Because then the next thing is like, what the hell is that?
Suburbia.
I've never heard of that.
I have not seen Suburbia. Have you?
I've never heard of that.
No.
Okay. But yeah, they used the time to actually. I mean, like, well, he was already like using like kind of like a real time, not necessarily real time, but like using time as like an important like aspect to his narratives before this, with Slacker and Days taking place over the course of 24 hours. You know, and these ones it's more the same. You know, before Sunrise, the time window is like 12 hours, 15 hours, or something like that. It's like a day and an evening.
Yeah.
And then they have to fuck off after, you know, right before Sunrise. And then Sunset, it's even quicker. It's like 2 hours, literally the time of the movie or thereabouts, you know.
Yeah, because he has to catch a plane.
He has to catch a plane.
I like that. I like him like giving himself that limitation.
Yeah.
Like, what can you make happen in 2 hours?
With Midnight, we don't have that as a strict. There's no narrative device that keeps them.
Linklater's White Lotus.
Kind of,
Does that take place over a couple of days?
Yeah, it does, but the bulk of it takes place over the course of like
one evening.
Yeah. With the whole like
the fight,
terribly crushing fight scene.
Yeah.
Oh god,
awesome! Yeah,
it's crushing.
It is, dude. Fuck me.
I remember just being so upset.
Oh, me too.
Mom, Dad, where Jesse and Celine fighting? Are they gonna get a divorce?
I don't want him to get a divorce.
Awesome. Literally me.
I think he laid the groundwork for this with just one scene, right, in Slacker, which you mentioned, right? There's a scene where these two lovers are like sitting in bed talking.
The one with the robe after the guy may or not get hit. Is that one?
I think there's a couple though. I think there's the really, really insufferable dude who talks to the girl before she meets the JFK conspiracy.
Yeah. Oh, that was
gonna go to the
God,
movie.
you're right.
That was one of the 3 that was dumping the typewriter and stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
And then he's like,
it's like a nightmare version of Before Sunset. It's like if like Ethan Hawke was terrible.
Just a total creep.
Ethan Hawke was just the worst.
But it's good because the girl in that scene was very much holding her ground because that guy was just an ass. My worst fear.
Worst case scenario, Parker Howard.
Worst case scenario, me is Tim Heidecker from I Think You Should Leave from the Charades episode. That's if everything goes wrong.
Paul Bufano.
Isaac what?
What is it? Colgate Comedy Hour?
We're talking about.
But I will say about Before Sunrise, I did a rewatch of it recently while y'all were at Worst Fest. Ethan Hawke does not come off as, I think, charming in that movie as I originally thought.
In Sunrise?
Yes. And I think that even solidified my view of why I like Sunset a bit more.
Okay.
Because he's matured and I don't know, I think even he's the same age that we are basically in that movie.
They're both 23, right?
Yeah. They're both that same of that just same
same ballpark.
Same
early 20s.
Yeah.
In their life, yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I guess I would hope I'm not that forward, I think, with a lot of things. Or at least that's not my style. But I think he comes off, from this perspective, I'm like, some of it was a little creepy.
I don't see anything wrong with being forward if it's being well received, and it is in that movie.
Okay. No, that's true. That's true. I guess some of it, it wouldn't have worked on me.
Okay, well, no, genuinely, I was just thinking, like, now we're talking about this, and I looked down and saw my criterion, like, of the Before trilogy, I'm like, I need to do a rewatch. I actually have only seen the whole trilogy, like, once. I've seen the first one 2 or 3 times, and then the other ones only once each.
I can't bring myself to watch the third one again.
It's rough.
It's like one of those things where it's like, it's not quite on the same level, but with like, Blue Valentine.
Yeah.
Or like Manchester by the Sea, or it's like I know it's coming. It's just gonna make me really upset, you know?
Right.
Why am I gonna put myself through this?
I think maybe some of it is like a forwardness that he wishes he would have had in that situation, right? Because it's based on a real interaction that he had.
I think it's very much, written in his, obviously, with himself in mind.
His voice, yeah.
Yeah, in his voice. I think that may just be my problem. And like, yeah, that's something I didn't necessarily consider. It's like, I think she didn't see anything wrong with it. And, if they're attracted to each other and it works. Some of it I was just like, he was talking about like monkeys having sex like 15 minutes into knowing her. And I was like, I don't know. I think I wouldn't have done that because... And he was also asking like, basically like, how many people have you slept with or something like that? I'm like...
Well, they get to that conversation. That doesn't happen immediately.
No, I know.
Hey, so you're reading a cool book on the train.
Yeah.
How many people you've had sex with, by the way?
If you think that you only have 12 hours to get to know somebody, you might ask those questions if the conversation lends itself to that. I don't see a problem with this. Like... Genuinely, if you're getting to know somebody and the conversation goes there and you're both like open to having that conversation, then what's wrong with that?
It's horseshoe theory.
The beta male. This is the future the liberals want.
We can get to stuff that I don't like with Everybody Wants Some. We'll get there because there's a lot about that movie that I really didn't like. And it comes down to some of what you're talking about.
I'd be curious to hear it because I've not seen, that's one that I've not seen.
I think I like that one a bit more than you liked it.
Definitely, and that's okay. I think it was made for the boys. Like, it was not made for...
Finally a Linklater movie for us.
That film was not made...
One for you and one for me.
With me in mind.
Do we want to talk about Waking Life? Or do we want to keep talking about...
Are we done with...
We can talk about... I think there was something I was going to say about like the trilogy, but I don't quite remember now.
We can get back to it. We're going to get back to it in our...
We'll get back to it.
What if...
There's no strict linear...
What if Linklater sells out and like makes like sequels to the Before trilogy again? Like
Before Sunrise 2. What are you talking about, dude? There's already one. Dude? Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. With Before Sunset, I think one reason why it's my favorite one is because I think it's just a really interesting thing to like go to this point in life where you're supposed to have things more figured out. If these are like adults in the midst of their 30s, they're supposed to have things more figured out. Mm-hmm. They're like arguably like more like fucked up than they were before, just because like things have just gotten more serious.
What's kind of interesting too is like just thinking about that, and maybe just growing up in general, and I think maybe having that movie in mind. But I think like I think career stuff can often be like pretty linear. I think if you pick a certain path, but I think some of it too, it's like nobody's gonna tell you to get married to this one person or be with this one person or like, and that's kind of terrifying. Yeah. I think it's like, if you want to, go for it. I'm like,
yeah, I think more than anything, that movie kind of solidified the whole thing. Like, well, so when you're like in high school and stuff, and you're like all like moody and emotional, and then your parents always say, or like people always say, like, oh, don't worry, all this won't matter when you're like older. And it's true, because all of the stuff that you're like concerned about is just like petty bullshit or
it
like
will pass.
That kind of thing. And it's like, oh yeah, no, when you're an adult, you'll be like much more like able to like it won't matter. That's what I've always heard. And I guess I took that to mean, and maybe that's my like misinterpretation, I took that to mean that like you just be too busy with your own shit that you won't have time to like feel like anything, or you're not time to feel like upset about stuff. And I'm like, okay, so it'll just be easier when I'm an adult. I'll be able to like figure it out. And now I'm like, I'm not in my 30s yet, but I'm like, shit, it's like I don't know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Does anyone ever know what they're doing? And is life just kind of like, you set your expectations just lower and lower, that way you're less disappointed? Is that the way to go about it? And that's like kind of the ideas that are like touched on with like some of the culminations of the conversations that Jesse and Celine have, like especially in that scene in the car, where Jesse's like Celine, excuse me, is saying like, oh yeah, I haven't had like I haven't been able to like fall in love yet, or like every time I fall in love, like they take a little part of me with them or something like that, and like they always leave me, that kind of thing. And then Jesse comes back and says like, oh yeah, my marriage is completely unhappy. There's no joy in my house. Everything sucks. I've just convinced myself that this is normal. And it's like, ouch, this hurts. But then they play Nina Simone at the end. And
yes, that's right.
Awesome. Yes.
Surely these problems won't return in 9 years.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Waking Life. I think we talk about, like, we can go back to Slacker with this one for sure. So at the very beginning of Slacker, the very first character that you encounter is Linklater himself, riding in the back of a taxi, telling the cabbie about his dream.
In different universes.
No, I think it's the same universe.
No, I mean, like...
What do you mean? Oh, like different universes in the dream.
Universes.
Yeah, no. I would say that, like, the dream he's talking about is Waking Life. And I listened to a podcast where Linklater said that Waking Life was kind of based on a dream he had when he was in high school or something. Legend. This guy's insufferable.
This story.
Watch this. Rick's going to tell the story about the dream that he had in high school.
And
You'll never guess what happened next.
So what is it called? I already forgot. The videotape thing that's at the end of Slacker.
So they have Pixel Vision?
Pixel Vision.
And then it's Super 8.
You already see him there, like, kind of playing with medium and, like, what you are seeing and how you're seeing it. And I think that just ties into... So he had this idea for Waking Life for, like, a while. He started working on it years before then, but it just never seemed, like, feasible. He was like, I don't know how I can make this. And then, he figured out some friends of his were working on this new animation style. And he was like, this is perfect. Like, this is what's going to make this come to life. Because... It would there's I don't know bend reality with it.
And, like, that movie also just looks so, like, uncanny too because of the
some of it looks so cool.
Some of it looks really cool.
Looks terrifying.
Some of it just looks dumb as hell and scary. But it's like they're really, and like the way like the background kind of moves too, like just all adds to the surrealness of the whole story.
Yeah.
So I would say that Waking Life is kind of a direct descendant of Slacker.
Takes place around Austin too.
Takes place around Austin, a little bit in San Antonio. And it's just a dream world. It's totally rotoscoped. It's animation, right? I love the way it looks. It's like all wiggly and squiggly.
Oh, no,
we
have some familiar characters return.
Some familiar faces. Wiley Wiggins. I love that name. Like, what a ridiculous name.
Anarchist professor from Slacker.
Insane.
The
guy who doesn't want to work.
Convict.
Sheldon.
Luke Mark. Everybody's in that.
Everyone's in it. Guys, great. Get in.
Everyone's gonna get these jokes.
There's a crazy scene.
Hey, one for you, one for me. All right.
There's a crazy scene in this too, and I'm gonna spoil it because I don't think Waking Life's a movie that really loans itself to like
it's more,
a rewarding plot. But like, there's a scene where like a guy at a bar is playing with a gun and says it's not loaded and sort of like shoots the bartender shoots him back, and like I hadn't seen that before until the other night, and I was like
and they just died.
Wake up.
Come on. Yeah, they also talk about like one of the other funny things is like the Wiley Wiggins, I guess he's like the main character. He's like the one that he's like is asleep.
Oh, nice. I love that part.
Honk shoe. But and then just like it's trying to like figure out how to wake up because he just keeps dreaming. One dream leads to another, that kind of thing. I like the whole like thing where it's like, okay, I'm gonna try to like figure out like how I could possibly like wake up from these dreams, and like looks at the clock or something like that, or looks at his watch and it's like nothing going on there.
I don't want to be on a podcast and start talking about dreams, but there has been like we talked about lucid dreaming, and I used to think it was bullshit, but then I did it like twice. Then I did it twice, or felt that feeling, and it was great. And I got out of one by looking at my watch, literally. And like it terrified me, and I woke up for some reason. But I remember that very vividly. I sound like an idiot right now, but like that is very much like the watch thing works. If you find yourself stuck in a dream, look at your watch.
Also, if you see a toilet in your dreams, do not use that motherfucker. Big mistake.
It will eat you.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you're gonna shit your pants, but.
Both work.
So let's just talk about what Waking Life actually is for a second, right?
Okay, yeah.
Because we talked about it in like broad terms, but
this is definitely one of his more like probably obscure ones, I guess. Not necessarily obscure, but like harder to come across.
Yeah. So Waking Life follows one guy, Wiley Wiggins, same guy that played Mitch
Kramer
in Dazed and Confused.
Mitch Kramer.
A little bit older now because this is 2001.
Yeah.
And he's basically just like stuck in a dream. He keeps thinking that he's waking up, but he wakes up into another dream.
Yeah.
And he's a little bit captures that feeling of like being just a little untethered, you know, not quite having a grip on reality, not knowing what's real and what's not. Are we in a simulation right now?
Simulation Swarm.
Nice.
That's another one for me.
That's
Dude, honestly, they're all for me.
They're all for you.
This podcast is all for me, right? Get your own podcast, assholes. All right, you don't think
You
it's
want to
funny.
make your own jokes?
Yeah.
Make your own podcast.
You don't think it's funny? Fuck off. All right, make your own podcast.
I just didn't need
I'm talking to them.
Okay.
Sorry. Sorry about that.
So Waking Life.
What do you want to say about Waking Life?
Yeah, say your spiel. Say your piece.
Say my piece. I mean, I don't know. I'd also just like, I think it's also another reflection of like, you know, Austin in general. It's like, because like we said, it takes place around Austin, some parts in San Antonio. And
Alex Jones is actually in this one.
Alex Jones is in it, yeah.
That blew my mind. I don't think I knew that the first time I watched it.
Friend of Linklater.
Richard Linklater's best friend, Alex Jones.
I miss the days when Alex Jones was just like a funny, weird dude in Austin. I guess I don't miss him because I never really like.
Why don't we hang out with Alex Jones anymore?
Because he's defaming families that have murdered children. That'll hinder that. What, too dark?
I don't want to get into that.
Okay, all right. Listen,
To be
hey,
honest with you.
here at the Mankheads podcast, we talk about the real issues, Emma.
Hard hitting.
Hard hitting. What was I gonna say? I don't fucking know. Not that important, I guess.
Next on the docket is Bad News Bears. I'm just playing.
Remake of a baseball movie.
Real quick, I feel like we should talk about School of Rock.
No, definitely.
I think School of Rock. That's one that I haven't seen.
That was the first Linklater I saw that wasn't in pursuit of auteur cinema.
No, I mean, like, that's the thing is, like, I feel like a lot of people, like, when we grew up, were like, or just really love that movie because, like, at least from my understanding, it's a really fun time, you know.
Jack Black, a tour de force performance.
Who's the guy that did Mike White?
Mike White's in this one.
I think he wrote it also, or something. It was like his project, and then they brought Linklater on.
Yeah.
Like, what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn, that classic Linklater White collaboration, and then you'd later see it in Before Midnight, and then, you know, nearly a decade later, you have The White Lotus.
Is Mike White in Before Midnight?
No, but yeah.
I don't remember that.
The ghost of Mike White haunts
the Greek villa that Jesse and Selena are at.
You're making a White
I was
Lotus.
just talking about setting of just like Mike White saw his old buddy Richard Linklater before midnight and was like, I'm gonna film season 2 of my upcoming HBO program in a place like this, in another Mediterranean
just the
country.
Mediterranean Sea.
I love his versatility, like the fact that he could be making all of these things and then just make School of Rock, and it's one of the best. Like,
well, yeah, that's what I was gonna get to that point. Like, even though I haven't seen it, it's like such like a departure from like, I guess like the ones that I had seen of this leading up to this. You know, I haven't seen. It looks like I haven't seen Suburbia or New Boys or Tape. You know,
genuinely like a very funny movie too.
It's
very
iconic.
Funny, very like heartwarming. It's everything like children's movies should be. Mm-hmm. I feel like that.
And it's
too.
Actually good.
There's been a real lack of those, save for a lot of things from animation studios. But even then, I just feel like those are becoming very like droll and like, I don't know, uninspired.
They don't say anything new.
No.
Yeah. School of Rock is so fun.
This is why I would like to work for Sesame Street one day.
I'm gonna change it from the inside out.
I'm gonna change it from the inside out.
I'm gonna be the change that I want to see on the block.
Yeah.
Sesame Street. It's my block.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, something interesting about School of Rock is that I think he manages to get some really great performances out of the child actors.
Great.
That none of them are annoying, or the kids that are annoying are meant to be annoying. You know, works well. And yeah, also I think manages to juggle a lot of different subplots from the kids and their own motivations, and it's really sweet. And I think Jack Black once again was a really great pick, and you know they'd work together a little later.
I'm sure he's so fun to be on set with if you're a kid. You know?
Yeah.
He's probably so fun.
My dad's hot take would be that he hates Jack Black.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like Jack Black.
I'm not the biggest fan
I
of his.
get it. I remember you saying that and I was like really offended. I was like, have you seen High Fidelity, his character? And that is so funny.
I was telling you that, and then you told me to watch Bernie, another film that we can cover a little bit. And I watched that and I was like, oh, that was good.
Yeah, he lost the lead role to Larry David at the last second.
Oh, okay.
Bernie.
Yeah, Bernie. Bernard.
That's a Bernie Sanders joke.
Dear Lord.
Topical.
I don't think there's much more to say about School of Rock.
We should watch it. It'd be fun.
You should watch it, yeah.
Fun time.
Yeah, it's fun.
Get drunk.
Get drunk.
Watch the kids movie.
Watch the kids movie. Yeah, what's better than this?
Literally nothing. I think it would be a very fun time.
That sounds really awesome.
That and G&D Element. The new Sight and Sound #1.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that real quick? The new Sight and Sound poll. Just every decade they poll directors all across the world, and they do a pretty definitive ranking of what the best movie of all time is.
Oh, yes,
The past 3 lists have been like Vertigo, 2012, 2002, and like 92, I believe, were all Vertigo. And before that, it was Citizen Kane.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This year, it was a G&D Element by Chantal Akerman, which is a 3-hour like structuralist experimental film about.
Really?
Yeah, it's like
I'm surprised.
It's
This never happens.
It's great, but I don't think that's a good pick purely because I think it will get unfairly maligned because I'm like, yeah, somebody's gonna like find the list and be like, oh, I obviously want to see what the best movies ever are, and I think Vertigo and Citizen Kane are movies.
They're much better.
Like, you know,
it's a movie. It feels like
Well,
a
like
movie.
when you told me this, I said the other day that like I think like Vertigo is probably like one of, if not the best movies to ever come out of Hollywood. And like when I say Hollywood, I mean like the like corporate structure of Hollywood, the system. You know, like
With
I
all
think
the cogs and the stooges.
I think you know exactly though. Like I mean like I like say that and then like I mean that in like because I think it does so many interesting things and like that weren't really like being done in Hollywood a lot, especially back in the midst of like the big corporate like structures of Hollywood like that.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there.
Actually, School of Rock is the best film to come out of the structures of Hollywood.
You can make an argument for that.
You clearly haven't seen Robots.
Kong Skull
Island.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on. So right after that, we have Before Sunset. Is there anything else to say on that front? Anyone?
I don't think so. I think I kind of covered most of what I wanted to say about that whole.
I've never seen his remake of Bad News Bears, but I'm assuming that's also a more commercial vibe.
Who stars in that?
I don't know. I've only seen the old
Billy Bob Thornton.
Okay. Yeah, I've only seen the 70s.
Weird offensive take. Scanner Darkly. Have y'all seen A Scanner Darkly?
I started it and I really did not fuck with it. I did not finish it.
If anybody's familiar with those Charles Schwab insurance commercials from like the early 2000s, that's exactly what this movie looks like. Like
I don't know what you're talking about.
this.
Look it up. Pull it up. Every 2
boom.
minutes.
That's
Thank
like,
you.
Is that literally just Scanner Darkly? Because it's what's his face?
Yeah.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves.
Not a new Charles Schwab commercial. Yeah, that's the.
Interesting. Once again.
Okay, I didn't say I didn't believe you. It just didn't come up.
Those assholes.
Charles Schwab.
Charles Schwab, yeah.
Okay, so let's get back on track.
People dancing.
Look at them.
Charles Schwab.
Look at them go.
So, rotoscoping, it looks the same as
Charles
Waking
Schwab.
Life now.
It looks better than Waking Life, I think, if you want a more consistent look. But
Well, I mean, but it's also like,
bye, Laura.
bye.
Drive safe.
See you.
We'll see you probably in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Love
Bye,
you.
Laura.
What's she going back in 2 weeks for?
I don't know, probably something.
Oh, okay.
I think it'd be great to see her.
Some.
Some.
Yeah, well, some.
Sublet her. Sublution.
Sublet her.
Sublations.
Linklatian.
But yeah, it has a pretty crazy cast though. You have Robert Downey Jr. You have, unfortunately he's in this, but Keanu Reeves. Me if I was Matthew Perry.
We literally touched on that topic.
I was just doing a callback. I was like, I listen.
He's a real fan.
RDJ's in that. Woody Harrelson, Winona Ryder,
King.
Keanu Reeves, and Rory, what's his name from? He plays Slater in Dazed and Confused. The stoner.
Oh, yeah.
He's in that one too.
He's in that. Yeah.
Rory
he looks
Cochrane?
really creepy in
Rory
that.
Cochrane, because Rory Kinnear was in he was in Men this year.
Yeah, God.
Yeah, which we
I still haven't even seen that.
Oh yeah.
I'll play a drinking game to it though. I think that'd be fun.
I hope she sees this, Alex.
Every time there's a man on screen, take a drink.
Men. Okay. But yeah, Scanner Darkly. It's an adaptation of a Philip K. Dick novel.
That's the only reason I even tried to watch it, because I'm like, okay, I can respect that.
I think it was trying to play into as well, like Patriot Act, post 9/11 Bush era. Intelligence, Homeland Security, and
paranoia.
Yeah, it was. I watched it this summer actually with Jack Rosenblatt, and that was my second time seeing it. I watched it all the way through this time, and yeah, it's like, I don't know. I think I should rewatch it, but it also.
I don't think it's one of his heavyweights.
I think it's one of his. I think the rotoscope is the thing. Rotoscope and the cast are probably the most notable aspects of it.
Heard.
Yeah. True. There's some interesting editing in it too. There's some fun choices, but kind of a weird choice. This one has Zac Efron in it.
Me and Orson Welles. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's Claire Danes too. I have no idea what that even is.
Yeah, it's me and Orson Welles. It was kind of a precursor to Mank, actually. You know.
We're not caught up on our Mank lore, I guess. Apparently not. What are we, some kind of frauds?
Yeah.
It's almost like I'm not. It's not like you're not a Mankhead.
It's like you're not a part of Mankheads.
All I'm saying, one of us here was in the bathroom of that Alamo Draft House when they saw Mank in theaters.
So you didn't see Mank in theaters?
It's not like I didn't see Mank in theaters. You didn't see Mank in theaters. No, I saw up until Bill Nye's cameos, Upton Sinclair, and I was like, yeah, I gotta leave. I gotta get out of here.
That's it. So moving on, let's go to Bernie, 2011.
Wait, before we do,
we should maybe restart.
Yeah, I was gonna say we should restart, but also
Linklater be like,
this is going on.
I wrote the damn movie, right?
Right.
That's so.
Okay, so here's what happened. We actually never restarted our recording after that, because that was the point at which we figured out that we were having audio issues. We got a little frustrated. We were like, oh, what the heck? And we thought we were going to have to redo the whole thing. That was before we just decided to keep it and kind of roll with it, but we still need to finish the episode.
Yeah, so we're going to do that now. Without considerably less Parker this time.
Yes.
He's out of town right now. We're recording this a few days after our first recording. So
2011's
Bernard.
I love this movie. I think it's actually one of my favorite Linklater movies of all time, and one of Jack Black's best performances.
Dude, okay, so going back to what I said earlier, I believe what I said earlier, about like me not being like, I might have not said this actually. I'm not the world's biggest Jack Black fan. My dad hates him.
Right.
And I'm like, I could go with or without him. I think in a lot of roles he's kind of like annoying, but
he can be, that's for sure.
In this role, I thought it was fantastic. I'm gonna jump and agree with you. And you told me to watch this movie because you're like, oh, you don't like Jack Black? Well, go ahead and watch this movie. Maybe it's like a different Jack Black role.
Maybe you'll change your
and I was like,
perspective.
Yeah, it changed my perspective at least to being a bit more open, because he's not just a one trick pony where he just like makes a bunch of like weird noises and
he's still like funny in this movie, but I think it's different because he's. First of all, there's just such a dramatic element to this movie with the funniness, but then like. He's also just playing a real person, which he doesn't do that often. So he had to like take into account this real person's personality, not just Jack Black's personality.
Yeah.
So if you don't know anything about this movie, it's the true story of this guy in a small town in Texas who worked at a funeral home and was just like loved by the community. Little Texas town. I can't remember which Texas town it is.
Carthage.
It is Carthage. You're right.
And I only remember that because of how like. You know,
Carthage.
Just Carthage. Yeah. It's like, it's a fun name for it. Like right. A tiny town in East Texas or wherever it is.
Yeah, I think so. And he befriends this old lady who like everybody in the town just hates, played by Shirley MacLaine, Queen of My Life. Love her so much. And it's awesome. It has all these kind of like interviews with people, like the townspeople, I say in air quotes, because like they're not really the townspeople, but it's like kind of acting like a...
It's a mockumentary.
Like a mockumentary, yeah. One of the people who is interviewed is McConaughey's mom. McConaughey mom cameo dropped.
Oh, really? Yeah. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. And McConaughey is also in it, of course. Linklater fave. Matthew McConaughey. Yeah, that's a great one. Nothing else for me to say about it. I don't want to talk too much about the plot because I think that everyone should just go watch it.
Yeah, it's definitely more
pleasantly
dramatic.
Surprised by.
And there are very surprising things about it, because I wouldn't having like no real idea what was going on in the movie, and it was a very I guess that's very rewarding.
Yeah,
and it's also like I guess one of his lesser known movies too, or at least
Linklater?
less. Yeah,
I would say so.
Linklater, yeah, one of his lesser known. Just lesser known movies. And it was like really cool. really fun to watch that.
Very fun.
Yeah.
Very fun. Okay, so moving on to one of the heavyweights, actually. 2014, we've got Boyhood.
Yeah, no, this is definitely one of the ones I was like wanting to talk about a lot. And I'm really sad Parker's not here to talk about it because I know he really loves the movie.
He wanted to talk about it, yeah.
Gosh, yeah, I don't know. Me and Parker were talking about it a little while back, and we both agree that there's like, I think that movie is kind of like our generation's like days maybe, in that it captures just like what it's like growing up in the 2000s.
Yeah, kind of
Texas,
2010s.
You know, 2010s. And it's like it's just so like, I don't know, so much of it just reminds me so much of my childhood, and especially the sequence when Jesse from Before Sunrise, Ethan Hawke.
Yeah.
Lord. Ethan Hawke, the father in the movie. He's like taking his kids to go like to an Astros game, into like the Houston Museum of Natural Science and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, dude, I literally did those things. These guys are literally me.
These guys are literally me. I just rewatched it over the summer for the first time since I had seen it in theaters, and I remember like enjoying it when I saw it in theaters, but it definitely hit way more as an adult, looking back and being like, I have now surpassed the point at which we leave off with the main character.
Yeah.
So this is one of these projects that I feel like really crystallizes what we've been talking about with his kind of obsession with the passage of time.
Very much.
Because we have things like the Before trilogy, where you see these people every, 9 years?
Every 9 years.
Every 9 years for 3 iterations. But in this movie, how often did they see each other?
I'm not quite sure. I think it's probably into like Criterion, like pamphlet thing that I have over there, and I should have done my research. But I want to say, because there are times where it's like, it's not every year, I don't think.
Yeah, maybe like every 2 years.
2 years, maybe?
For a period of, I think, 12?
12 years, yeah.
So you really get to see these kids just grow up.
Yeah.
And you grow up with them, and they make you remember what it's like, what it was like when you were growing up in Texas, in like rural suburban Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like for us, it definitely hits in its particularity, but also like it's still pretty universal in that it captures a lot of feelings of like growing up and like, you know,
definitely,
especially in like families that aren't quite as traditional. This family in particular, it's like divorced parents, so it's like, you know, they have like different like things, and their father is like not the most present, but you know.
Yeah, he's not a bad person though.
No, definitely not.
I love that about like all of his movies. All of the characters feel always like real people, and they have some kind of sympathetic qualities, even when they're not your favorite.
Yeah.
There was something I was gonna say, and I'm blanking.
I'll go ahead and say something in case you think of it. But the thing that always like makes me like so sad about this movie, well, it's like nostalgic, of course, you know, but also is just Patricia Arquette's character is just, I don't know, it's just so heartbreaking.
Oh yeah, okay. Actually, I remember what I was gonna say. Go ahead.
The last like thing, like every character kind of gets like a good little like send off, I guess. I would especially say so. Like at the end with that like graduation scene, that graduation party, you know. Ethan Hawke's new like, or like I guess the character Mason's like step family is there, and they're having a good time, the grandparents and everyone's having a good time, and then right as like it flashes forward again like a few months, and right as Mason is about to go out of town for college and move like across the state, I guess, to like West Texas or something like that. I don't know. It looks like it. Patricia Arquette's character like just goes in this like monologue at the very end, where she's like, you know what, I've just realized, or she starts crying, it's like, I've just realized my life is just gonna flash off like that, you know, like what, like now, like one day I'm, you know, like changing diapers, and the next I'm like, you know, just like sat here watching you go off to college. Yeah. And then Mason's like, well, it doesn't have to be like that, or like you don't have to think about it like that or something like that. But I don't know, it's like a very like, I don't know, and I'm sure it's like a feeling that like she would regret having, and like it's almost like a resentment towards Mason that she has.
He has the rest of his life in front of him.
He has the rest of his life in front of him, or that her life is like done. Now it's just like downhill, and she can't be happy for him like on this like big momentous day or something like that.
Dude, that scene is literally so heartbreaking. I was crying,
and I'm like, oh.
So what I was gonna say actually was that I'm not Patricia Arquette's biggest fan, but I love her in this movie. Like,
she's
so
fantastic.
Much. She's fantastic.
I think she's probably the best performer in the movie.
I agree.
The kids aren't.
They're not good, and it's like fine. It's like fine.
No, it's fine that they're not.
The girl is actually Richard Linklater's daughter.
Yeah.
Rip. It's kind of like a Sofia Coppola moment. I remember it's like
She was also in like wasn't she in
that good.
wasn't she in Waking Life too for a second?
You know what? I think she was.
Right?
I think she was, yeah.
Because I remember us like pointing her out like, oh, is that is that little Linklater?
Yeah. What was her? Is her name Lorelai?
Yes.
Yeah.
Lorelai. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Sounds right.
And side note, this is like not important at all, but I did see the guy that played Mason at Six Flags when I worked there one time. Totally under the radar. Like, he was just there by himself too, and he just walked by the ride that I was working at, and I just like followed him with my head like with my mouth hanging open. And that was that. I didn't say anything because I didn't remember his name, so I was like, what am I gonna call it? Hey,
you.
You're
the kid from that movie.
But I thought it was very cool because I was like, there he is. He's a real person.
Well, yeah,
and he's just a guy.
He is just a dude, right? Like, he's not necessarily an actor.
Yeah.
I don't know how many credits or movies he has to his name or something like that, if any more. No,
I don't think he does, except for like maybe one thing before this, because I listened to a podcast where Linklater talked about wanting to find a child actor who like actually had some kind of interest and experience in acting, just because it's like, this is a commitment. Like, I want you to want to be acting.
Right.
And that guy isn't acting anymore. So I think that's kind of interesting. It's like maybe that was an experience that made him go like, what if I just lived life, like my life?
Yeah.
You know?
And it's like, I think it's a good one to have because it's a pretty beloved movie.
Oh, yeah.
But also not like too crazy known to where like you would be, I don't know,
recognized.
Stopped on the street, you know?
Yeah.
Or like, you know, hounded by like a bunch of like people, or like you have your privacy like
totally invaded.
Sorry, bit sick that.
But yeah, I love Boyhood. It made me feel so wistful.
Yeah.
When I watched it, I was just like, oh my God, like my heart kind of hurts. Like, I'm already past all of these points in my life that this kid goes through. We, like you said, we leave off with him going to college, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I just graduated from college, so I have far surpassed him, and I don't have a Linklater movie to guide me in the next steps of life.
Yeah.
I want to briefly talk about the next film that he put out. Actually, I don't know if it was even the next thing, but it's the next thing I want to talk about. 2016's Everybody Wants Some, which is named after a song just like Dazed and Confused. And it's set in the 80s rather than the 70s, and it's about college rather than high school. So I feel like in every way, it is a successor of Dazed and Confused. But on that note, it's like not nearly as good. I wouldn't even waste your time watching it. I feel bad saying that because I like love Linklater so much. But I really didn't like that movie. I just found it to be very much a boys' movie about chase and tail, and that's pretty much what the movie is about. And I just didn't like it. Like, no further comment. Like,
sounds kind of fun to me.
Of course it does. It's like a bunch of bros in the 80s, baseball bros. It's like the baseball team, and you're at the baseball house. It wasn't bad. There were like some good moments, but it was like there was like a single female character, and she was like only a love interest to be like one. You know, it was just like not. There was a lot of things about that I was like, I feel like he has crafted things a lot better than this one was.
Valid. I haven't seen it, so I only have your judgment to go on.
Yeah.
Go off.
I didn't see the next couple of things. Last Flag Flying. Where'd You Go, Bernadette? Haven't seen those.
Those are kind of more on the lines of like. I guess more like commercial stuff that we were talking about with
School of Rock.
School of Rock, yeah. Yeah. No, I did. I mean, like I remember like seeing like ads for those and shit, and I don't know how much movie those made at all, but like I don't know. I know that I really saw them.
Same. His next project, which we'll get to see when we're 40, something, is called Merrily We Roll Along. At least that's the working title right now.
How old is that guy?
Linklater?
Yeah. Could be like 60, right?
Venture to guess like 60.
God damn, he's going to be putting that movie together when he's 80.
He probably has like some kind of system in place, like somebody he trusts to like finish it or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
Couldn't tell you. This one's going to be a 20-year project.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
Which is why I'm like, well,
got ahead of
I'll
ourselves.
see it when I'm
yeah.
in my mid-40s. But I have no idea what the premise of it is. I don't even want to know. Like, I'll see it when I see it. But
I'm sure we'll start hearing more about it when it starts like.
Yeah,
nearing completion
when
or
it's
whatever.
like, because I don't even think it's in production at all yet.
Yeah,
like it's like once it starts production, it will keep going for 20 years,
right?
And then probably have a year or two of post production.
Yeah,
and then we'll get to see it. So
I feel like this is like the culmination of the ideas that he was putting together with like
definitely
Before Sunrise.
this will be his like magnum opus.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a
Boyhood,
5-hour long thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of awesome, honestly, because I loved like the super long form of Boyhood and just like using that as like an episodic thing.
Yeah.
So I don't
It
know.
makes it feel not as long.
Yeah, it does.
you
Because
know?
it's not like, and especially because it doesn't, well, I shouldn't say especially, but in the way that it uses its lack of Boyhood, I mean, and uses its lack of like any sort of like goal or plot, it's just like, it feels like we're like just chugging along. Like, all right, let's
Just
go
like-
next. Let's go to the next.
It's
Let's
literally just like, yeah, that was one of those, I think the movie that's so far, he has just like captured everyday life like the best.
I think so too.
You know? So with all that said, I guess we can move on to kind of like final thoughts. Why are we talking about Richard Linklater? Like, why do we love him so much?
Who cares? So what?
Who cares?
Who cares? I mean, like, I can tell you that I really just love his movies because, like, well, one, I feel like he captures like a mindset and a feeling of Texanness that I feel like it's really hard to like
Yes.
put to screen, like I was talking about with Slacker a bit earlier.
He captures that rebellious Texan spirit because he didn't go to film school.
Right.
He doesn't follow the rules. He just does what he feels.
Exactly.
And you can feel it.
Yeah, and you can feel that a lot, and like, and all the different like aesthetics he explores, whether it be like, you know, DIY counterculture in Slacker, or like idyllic romance in the Before trilogy, or just, you know, everyday small town Texan life in Boyhood. I don't know. It just like goes in a lot of different directions, but still always manages to capture like a same kind of feeling that I think is like really unique.
Yeah, it's that is his voice.
Yeah.
I just love how he can, I mean, like you're saying too, like just capture and celebrate like the minutia of everyday life because it's beautiful. It doesn't have to be some, you know, whatever, a theme park ride of a movie, right? For it to be like beautiful and moving. It can just be this kid growing up.
Yeah, I also think his movies are very cutting edge, even when they're a bit more mainstream. You know, like a Boyhood, I think, is like, you know, probably one of his more like university celebrity movies and had a lot of Oscar buzz. I don't know that it won anything actually, or like that it won anything like huge.
I don't know, actually, to be honest
But
with you.
you know, I think it's still like
Awards don't matter.
they don't.
They
And
just don't matter.
because
yeah.
you know there's so much stuff that
It's
slips
all
through the cracks, and it's all
subjective,
subjective, and like a lot of it's also very like comes down to like weird politics, and they're like, oh, it's like which movie is like the most palatable, which movie do we want to like be the one that's celebrated as the best movie of the year, and yeah, but I think he just does a lot of really like interesting things without having to like also resort to just being totally like inaccessible, you know, and like
Yeah.
I think there's he finds such a strong middle ground in where he works in that still is and I'm sounding like a broken record, but still so unique. I don't know.
I love the like naturalism of his movies, which goes with what I already said, like minutia of everyday life, like whatever. But when you're watching things like Before Sunrise or Boyhood or anything, it's like this is like a real conversation that somebody would have, and it's kind of awkward, or it's just like funny, or you don't always know what to say, or and I love that, and I love that too, just because I know that he rehearses the hell out of his scripts, and I mean, and like so they'll change while they're doing that because we know he spends a lot of time with his actors before filming with them, so that they all can really get to know each other, and it's like you can feel just like the natural chemistry between them when you're watching them, and then they'll workshop the script like while they're rehearsing and stuff. But those things are rehearsed like down to the every little split detail.
Yeah, I remember when I watched Slacker, I thought, man, is this like how much of this is improvised? You know, and like so much of that movie is just so very like awkward, like, you know, and everything,
Yeah.
like even down to just the little things that people say, or like the little like glances and movements that like the actors do and stuff like that. I'm like, how much of this is improvised? And it was like not much at all.
Not much at all. Yeah.
Same thing with like before the Before trilogy, especially Before Sunset, which I think So I like I said earlier, as the like some of the best dialogue in any of his movies. Maybe the best in my opinion. But I'm like, wow, that's like, this all just feels like you said, just so real, and like it's just such like it hits a bunch of different points that needs to be hit in order to move this like this plot and this narrative along, while also managing to feel like this is how a genuine exchange between two people that shared such a strong, intimate moment together 9 years ago would have in the span of 2 hours. You know, yeah, I don't know. I just gush about him so much because I just like, you know, everything. Like I think in terms of craft and ethos, it just all like everything about it appeals to me.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I mean, like, not even just as creatives, but as people living in Texas, he has spent his career, like, just capturing the moment of, I mean, anytime he makes a movie, it's like he is capturing this time and place and a feeling of, like, being here and living here and loving here and dying here and whatever, you know? I love him so much for that. I feel like he has 100%, like, okay, not that I'm not an authority, but he has, like, earned being called, like, an auteur. Like, he just is one in every sense of the word. That's why we can make a joke and say, oh, Linklatian. But you know what I mean when I say that, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know exactly what someone means when they say that. Because what he does is just, like, no other. So, yeah, we love him. I love what he's done to, like, solidify Texas as a, because I agree, there is a universality to his movies, but I do think he's just so special to Texas. Yeah. And he, like, lifts us up, like, in the eyes of other people, too, you know? Because, I mean, even though Texas has always had a place in the film industry, it's people like him who, like, got us recognition. Like, oh, yeah, there's something to be said and done in Texas. Yeah, it also breaks the whole, like, I don't know, the monolithic viewpoint of, like, outsiders, or it helps to break that, you know, where, you know, a lot of people will view Texas like, oh, just a bunch of, like, you know, Republicans that are, like, toting guns and, you know, taking away people's rights and stuff like that. You know, it's like, well, no, I mean, there's a lot of, like, nuance to these stories. People that aren't necessarily, like, about that, or people that are kind of just, like, you know, really detest that and are just kind of stuck there in, like, slacker, or people that are, like, may not even, like, have any sort of, like, conscience for anything, like, political, or, like, anything, like, is too inherently political with it, or, like, Boyhood or something like that, you know. He does good in helping to break that that stereotype, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, I think that he's a king. True. Love him for the rest of my life. Austin King, even though he's from Houston. Yeah. He's an honorary Austinite. Austonian. Yeah, he's made enough films about this fucking town, so he gets it. You know? He gets it. Shit, we're not even from Austin anyway, so. Yeah, we're not even from Austin. So, you know, that's the Linklater episode. Linklatian, if you will. Make sure to follow us on Instagram. At Mankheads Podcast. At Mankheads as well. Follow Mankheads. You can follow us on Twitter at Mankheads. You can also follow us on Tumblr. We have a Tumblr. I made a Tumblr. Mankheads, as usual. You know how it is. We're reaching far and wide. I'm just, like, trying it all, honestly. I just kind of want to see. I'm like, so, you know, you can look for things on there. Don't forget that you can watch. What's our LinkedIn? Well, we're gonna have to, like, become an actual company before we can do that, I think. Oh shit. Okay. Our time will come. Okay. LLC. Make sure to, you know, watch this on YouTube. This episode will be on YouTube. You can watch the previous episode on YouTube as well, on the Mankheads YouTube channel. This is probably going to be our final episode of the year. So, yeah, you know, happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. We'll see you on the other side. In 2023. Big things coming. Big things coming for Mankheads. Keep an eye out. Yeah. All right, signing off. Oh, do you have anything else to say? No. Okay. Okay. I just saluted. I just realized that you can't see that. Oh, yeah. We didn't acknowledge the fact that the video is just going to stop at this point. Oh, yeah, the video's not been going. You probably noticed it. Yeah, you probably already noticed, but, like, the video stopped. Anyway. Watching, but make sure to watch us on YouTube. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Bye. All right, bye-bye.